David had more than 6 wives. There are 6 wives that are listed in chapter 3, verse 3, Perek Gimel Pasuk Gimel of Shmuel Bet, 2 Samuel. And then beyond that, there's Michal. Some say maybe Michal was one of those 6 who's listed by a different name. There were concubines. But we know from chapter 3, verse 3, of 6 wives, 6 sons. And as I said, there are others as well. One of the wives was Ma'acha. Ma'acha was the princess, the daughter, non-Jewish, of the king of the kingdom called Geshur. Geshur. Geshur, Gimel Shin Vav Resh. In battle, David took her, and we learned halakhot, the laws of the Yafat Toar, a beautiful woman found in battle. Under halakha, the soldier is allowed to be physically intimate with that woman one time. He may not again. If the battle goes on for months and he's stationed in that area, he's not allowed more than one time. We know that in other societies, aside from rape, which is somewhat common in war among many other nations, we know, for example, in American art and literature, music, the story of the American soldier who fights in Asia and while stationed there gets lonely. Most soldiers in their late teens and early 20s, when they're fighting, gets lonely, and he meets an Asian lady, and he takes up with her. And it's the very premise of Madame Butterfly. Pardon me, my cough is a little active right now. It's the premise of Madame Butterfly by Puccini, at least the music by Puccini, where the American soldier is with the Japanese lady, and she understands he's in love with her and they're married. He doesn't tell her that he's married back in the States because he's stationed for a year more, and she gets pregnant, Japanese lady, and she sent, after the war, he goes back to the States, tells her he's going to get some stuff together, come back and bring her with him. So she gets all excited, tells him by post that she has a baby coming. He comes, she's all thrilled. And then what he does is he tells her that he's already married to a woman in the States, and this baby will never have the same opportunities if the lady raises him in Japan, the lady with basically no income, versus all the opportunities the baby will have if he takes the baby back to the States to be raised by his American wife and himself. And essentially, as he sails off, she kills herself. And that same premise plays out in later years. Most recently, that comes to my mind is the Saigon one, Miss Saigon, the Broadway theater play that was written with music by the same people who did Les Miserables. And only it takes place in Vietnam, but the same premise. So in Judaism, the idea was you're at war, and Judaism and Torah offered some kind of a, let's call it a compromise. And remember again, we're also, I'm sorry, I really have a little cough in me. Let me see, all right, 150. So in the Torah, we've learned already that the rules regarding sexual relations were a little bit different and looser in the old days. People could be married to more than one wife, and people had concubines, and there were things that went on and that were allowed. And over the course of generations, the culture evolved, and there are certain things that are not allowed now that were allowed in their time. So at war, the Torah's compromise was a soldier could be physically intimate but one time. You couldn't have a situation where the guy's going to take up with the lady for a year, 2 years, 3 years, one time. If he wants that much to be with her beyond one time, she has to convert to Judaism. And conversion cannot be, it's not like the Catholic conversions of Jews where they did it at the point of a sword, or threatened that they're going to burn people at the stake, as in the Crusades and the Inquisitions. A Jewish conversion has to be done by Kabbalat Ol Malchus Shemayim, a voluntary acceptance and a willing reception of Judaism and its mitzvot and its obligations. So you can't decide, well, I really think this lady is so amazing, and under the law, I can only be with, so I'm going to force her to convert. She has to want to convert. And so you'll remember she has to shave her hair so that she's completely bald, and she sits shiva, so to speak, not literally sit shiva, but she mourns her parents for 30 days, and she got to cut her nails, her fingernails, so she's not attractive. A woman's attractiveness is enhanced by fancy fingernails and the way the hair is done. That's why women spend a lot more money on their hair being done and on their fingernails. Most guys don't do that. So, and that's been the way through all of society, through all times, by and large. So, Ma'acha one time got pregnant, was physically intimate with David and got pregnant and had a baby. And then David wanted her, and she converted to Judaism, and they married, and then she had another baby. Let's go back to my summary. So that way I do it quickly, efficiently, and it's all there in front of you as well to refresh your memory. One of the wives, Ma'acha, was the daughter of the king of Geshur, was taken in battle as a Eshat Yafat Toar, a beautiful woman. One intimate encounter was permitted with such a woman. Ma'acha became pregnant with Tamar. So Tamar's mother was a non-Jew. Means Tamar was a non-Jew. And halakha regards her as born without a father, because as we learned, a Jewish man who has a baby with a non-Jewish woman, the Jewish man under halakha has no lineage with that child. And as we've explained several times, if that child later goes on to be an Orthodox child, Orthodox Jewish, and you call that child to the Torah if it's a boy, you say, let's say the boy's name is Shimon. Ya'amod Shimon ben, some people say Avraham Avinu. He's Shimon, the son of our patriarch Abraham, the original convert. Abraham began as a non-Jew and took on Judaism. Others call him up as so-and-so, the son of his mother, like Shimon ben Ya'amod, Shimon ben Tamar, since she is the mother, assuming she converted to Judaism. If she doesn't convert, but the child grows up to convert, then like he's a child of a Jewish father and a non-Jewish mother, and his name is Shimon, so we call him up Ya'amod Shimon ben Avram Avinu, because his mother is not Jewish and the father, he has no father. So Tamar's mother was non-Jew. Halakha regards her as born without a father, and there is no halachic paternal lineage for a Jewish man who impregnates a non-Jewish woman. So again, we use the example, well, we don't have to, we just said it. When that non-Jewish woman converts, as Ma'acha does, if she does, is the baby Jewish? So the answer is as follows. Let's just take that off the screen. Okay. If the baby is born after Ma'acha or any other such non-Jewish woman converts. So the woman is carrying a fetus that was conceived when she was non-Jewish. But the baby comes out after the mother becomes Jewish. We say the baby came out of a Jewish womb, and yes, the baby is automatically Jewish. If, however, the baby is born before the non-Jewish mother converts, assuming the mother later converts, the baby's not Jewish, and the baby has to be converted too. Well, how can you convert a baby? We just went through a whole thing about how a conversion has to be done willingly, knowingly. The exception is children. If a couple are creating a Torah house, a Shomeret Shabbat environment, and they're kosher and there's Shabbos and everything, and they've got this child. So here's your scenario. You've got your Jewish man and the non-Jewish woman, and the woman gets pregnant, so the baby's going to have no father. And then the mother gets converts to Judaism, so the baby comes out of it, and the mother hasn't converted yet. The baby comes out before the mother makes it to the mikveh. The mother's mikveh date is going to be in 2 months, but the baby came sooner. So the mother converts, and then the question does, what are we going to do with this 2-month-old baby? So now the mother's Jewish, the father is Jewish, just not lineage. What are we going to do with this baby? The baby's going to be raised in a kosher home, Shabbat observant home. What are we going to say? The baby should not go to yeshiva? What are we going to say? The baby should not be raised or ready to learn all the mitzvot? It's taking place. So the halakha is the mother takes the baby to the mikveh and dunks the baby in the mikveh. The same thing with the dunking immersion in the mikveh. And the mother recites the brachas and everything. And the baby's given the opportunity if a boy at a bar mitzvah, age 13, a girl at bat mitzvah, age 12, is asked the question at that point. You are, as a baby, converted to Judaism. Today and now, and only now, you have the opportunity to renounce that conversion and restore your non-Jewish status. If you do so, that's fine, no hard feelings. You'll have to work it out with your parents later, but you tell us. But if you do not renounce your conversion now, you are Jewish and you remain Jewish the rest of your life. You cannot come back in 3 months and say, I changed my mind. You're Jewish. You're stuck. So what we have here is the Tamar is born after the mother converted to Judaism. So Tamar is Jewish, without a father, but with a mother, living in the royal family, in the royal household, and she therefore is not exactly, certainly not by father, anyone's sibling, because everyone else has in common that their father is King David, each with a different mother. But she has no father of King David. The only thing is, she does share a common mother, Ma'acha, with one of the boys. After Ma'acha converted to Judaism, David and she had another baby. And this was Avshalom, and he's 100% Jewish. Someone born to a convert is 100% Jewish. It's not a convert. If you're born to the convert before they converted, then you have to convert also. But if you're born to someone who had been a convert and converted, who had been non-Jewish and converted, you're Jewish, end of story. Ruth, we spent all this time learning about Ruth, the book of Ruth. Non-Jewish Moabite, converted to Judaism, had a baby with Boaz, and then it went on, and everybody's Jewish, to King David, to Mashiach. So David's got 6 sons plus, and Amnon was the crown prince, the oldest, next in line, first in line to be king. His father is David. His mother is Achinoam, the Yisraelite, not Yis with an S, with a sin, but Yiz with a Zion, Jezreel. The Jezreel Valley is in northern Israel. Extends not north, not up to the Golan Heights, but northward in Israel. And David had met Achinoam. We've studied that enough times. So it says in chapter 3, verse 3 as follows. Vayivaldula David ben Bechevron. Before he moved to Jerusalem, his first 7.5 years as king, his capital was Hebron. His first, the Bechor, firstborn Amnon, born to Achinoam the Jezreelite. Then came Kilav, who for whatever reason doesn't get much play. And he's born to Abigail. She's the wife of Naval, the very brutish, coarse Carmelite, who was having a sheep shearing festival, did not want to share Share anything with David. But for the fact that Abigail raced forward with food supplies to David, David might have killed this guy. Nevertheless, when Abigail, the wife, told Naval she had done that, he sustained a stroke and died from that. And then David married her. Third, Hashlishi, Shalosh, the third, was Avshalom, the son of Ma'acha. We just talked about that. And Ma'acha is the daughter of Talmai, the king of Geshur. And then there's a sixth one. Okay. So Absalom was the third born. His mother was Ma'acha after she converted. So he had the same mother as Tamar, but a different father, David. Tamar had no father. Yet Avshalom was Tamar's only brother. Because all others, again, had David as a father. She did not, halachically. And all others but Avshalom had different mothers. But Avshalom shared a common mother. Amnon, the crown prince, raped Tamar. She then begged him to marry her. Let's touch on this from a previous question that had been asked. Just a moment. Let's let that person in. Now, there had been a question asked earlier. Let me just bring this down. Make sure I got this. This was not on the screen. Okay, let's get this. I'm sorry. So anyway, it was not on the screen. I'll be more careful. Because it's on a different platform. When I go on Word, it's a different platform from the internet, from Chrome. I'm sorry. So fortunately, I caught it soon. So we had talked about this. In the halakhot, if a man rapes a woman, he has to marry her. But she has the right to refuse to be married to him. So it's kind of a one-way road. There are three parts to that one-way road. The woman can refuse to marry the rapist. The father of the raped woman can refuse to let his daughter be married to the rapist. And the rapist can refuse to marry, in which case he has to pay a substantial financial payment instead. Not just a token payment, but a substantial payment. You would ask, why would a woman want to be married to a rapist, her rapist? And we talked about that at greater length. This is more a summary, but also a refresher. She basically has been spoiled. It was a time when being a virgin still is a thing in the Orthodox community when you're getting married. And I imagine also with Baptists and other devout Christians. When they're getting married, I imagine it's a thing that the woman should be a virgin. But the greater society today is what it is. In that society of biblical times, a person who is no longer a virgin was someone that people did not want to marry. It was a different society, a different world. And it's a little bit hard, but you know all that stuff we always mock about the Arab Muslims, and they're going to have their 72 virgins. But all the mocking aside, and there's plenty of it to mock, why virgins? What's wrong with just having 72 chicks waiting for you? because it goes back to the ancient times that there was a special value in a virgin. So why would a woman want to marry her rapist? In the greater context of things, there is a situation sometimes where a woman feels no one will marry me. If the word got out, or if I have to tell that I've been raped, a person's not going to marry me. I'm not a virgin, and they're not going to say that I was immoral, and it's not a reflect. They're just not going to marry me, and I'm going to end up never getting married. And if that's going to happen, I don't want to be because of that. And like now, I'm 20 years old, or 22, or 19, and I'm looking ahead at the next 60, 70 years, and I know it's already resigned. This is my situation. That's why a woman would say, I'll marry him. And that's why the halakha says the father can intervene and say, oh, no, you won't. No, you're not going to marry him. I know you're desperate, and the father and mother have to talk to the child and explain your life is not over, and we'll get a matchmaker, which is how they did it in those days, and we will find someone of high quality, and if it's not the first one, it'll be the second one. And who wants to marry a jerk that if a guy won't, despite all your wonderful qualities, if the fact that you were raped, he doesn't want to, maybe you don't want to even marry him to begin with. Now, it happens to be that, I'm living a very interesting life as a rabbi. I really did not expect, after the lung transplant and everything, that little by little, I'd be practicing so much rabbinic work. Obviously, I'm teaching 3 classes a week, and there's the parsha in my writing, but I get a certain amount of pastoral peer requests where I'm counseling people. And one came up about 3 months ago. A young lady married a young guy in the Orthodox, and this is the Haredi community, what you might call the black hat community. This doesn't come up in modern Orthodox. We have our modern Orthodox, or I don't use that term. Many of us modern Orthodox now call ourselves centrist Orthodox, because there are some modern Orthodox on the left, and they're too far to the left. And yeah, they don't turn on the lights on Shabbat, but their attitudes towards homosexual marriage and all that stuff. So we call ourselves centrist Orthodox. Anyway, I'm part of that modern centrist Orthodox world. When we get married, we don't necessarily go to a matchmaker. We sometimes do, but more often than not, we do it the old-fashioned way. We either pick up a lady's handkerchief, or she trips us, or whatever else happens, drops a bowl of soup on us, whatever it happens, you end up getting married. So the idea in the Haredi world is everybody does it by matchmaker. It's really a thing. And I have my opinions about it. And sometimes when I'm a little bit more tired and you can get even more truth out of me, I let you know exactly what I think about matchmakers. But they are there, and every so often they accomplish something useful. So here's this mother calling me, telling me the following tale of woe. And I don't say it sarcastically, it's a tale of woe, although it's something that doesn't really resonate in modern Orthodoxy or centrist Orthodoxy. Their daughter is a very, very good girl. She's an excellent catch, very pretty and smart, high morals, already has like a graduate licensing in one of the areas that the Haredi world girls who want to get licensing, there are certain areas they go into, and so she's a catch, and her parents have money. I mean, I'm not saying it sarcastically. I mean, what do you look for? In a Haredi world, she's pretty, healthy, parents have money, has licensure and or a certification, and she's everything good. And she married a guy from a very nice family, and it was a matchmaker job. and everything's good. And they had a big, big, big fancy wedding. And everybody was thrilled on both sides. It wasn't, as so often happens in life, where at least one, if not both sets of parents are all aggravated and they're sure that their kid could have done better. And then a month later, they got divorced. And for the life of me, well, I don't want to say for the life of me, thank God I have my life and I don't, but I couldn't get it out of her. I couldn't get out of this mother what went wrong. It's very, very hard to give your best possible counseling when you're kept in the dark. That's why in secular law, for example, they have attorney-client privilege, because an attorney cannot give his or her best counsel if she or he doesn't know the full story. And if you really did it, as the lawyer, let me know, and then let me work at it that way, because otherwise I'm going to take a different tack, arguing something, and it's going to blow up at the courtroom when they show the evidence the other way. So I don't know why they got divorced, but they got divorced after a month. And this lady, the mother's daughter, is about, I'd say 22, 23. And the basic point is that the girl's life is over. Not that she's suicidal, but she just accepts that her life is over. She's never going to get married. She shows me a picture. The mother shows me, it's a very pretty girl. Mother tells me what field she has, and mother tells me this and that. And I know, and as I'm talking to the parents, I get an idea what the father does for a living. He's a partner in one of the professions, and the mother, her life is over. Okay, Mishigas, but her life is over. In her circles, either she's got to become modern Orthodox, in which case, boy, is her life over. It's like they're saying, the last thing in the world I want is for my daughter to become modern Orthodox, God forbid. Yeah, but you're counseling with, yeah, because you're smart, you know things. The other rabbi doesn't know this stuff. You know this stuff, but I don't want my daughter to become modern Orthodox. So that's a thing. So that's why a woman in biblical times would say, I'd like to marry my rapist. Terrible thing. And you would think that Tamar, the daughter of the king of Israel, there's got to be some decent guy out there who'd be glad to marry the daughter of the king of Israel. So you'll remember that we left off with that. Amnon raped her. She begged him to marry her. He threw her out, disheveled. And Avshalom figured it all out. Avshalom is the one with the same mother. Took it personally. This had been done to his sister by the same mother, albeit done by his brother by the same father. When the opportunity arose, Avshalom murdered Amnon at the annual sheep shearing festival. David now was torn. He wanted Avshalom executed for murdering the crown prince, but he did not want to kill his son, Avshalom. That's a big thing, to execute your son. And that was that thing where Yoav, the chief of staff of the military, set up a woman from the town of Tekoa, the place where they have olive oil and it makes everybody smart, to go and tell David a kind of story about how she had her husband and her died, and she's got two sons, and they got into a fatal fight in which one killed the other. Oops, I forgot to do it right again. Thank you. Thank you. Let me just get this on the right way. Doggone. Okay, that'll get it back on. All right. So let me just read this real quick. So I want you to have the words in front of your eyes. David had more than 6 wives, more than 6 sons. One of the wives, Maacha, was the daughter of the king of Geshur. Taken in battle, beautiful woman. One intimate counter was permitted with such a woman. Maacha became pregnant with Tamar. So Tamar's mother was a non-Jew, and halakha regards her as born without a father. There's no halachic paternal lineage for a Jewish man who impregnates a non-Jewish woman. When that non-Jewish woman converts, if she does, is the baby Jewish? If born after conversion, yes, Jewish. If born before conversion, baby then has to be converted too. Amnon was crown prince, first of the sons. Father is David, mother Achinoam of Jezreel. Avshalom, third born. Mother was Ma'acha, after she had converted. So he had the same mother as Tamar, but a different father, David. Tamar had no father. Yet Avshalom was Tamar's only brother. Amnon raped Tamar. She begged him to marry her. He threw her out. Avshalom took it personally. This had been done to his sister by the same mother, although done by his brother by the same father. When the opportunity arose, Avshalom murdered Amnon at Avshalom's annual sheep shearing festival. David was torn, wanted Avshalom executed for murdering the crown prince, but he did not want to kill his son. Avshalom fled to the kingdom of Geshur for sanctuary. Geshur is on the other side of the Jordan River up north. It's a different country. There had been war with Israel. David had taken the daughter of the king as a wife. So that created a sort of alliance after the war by marriage. So on the one hand, we were at war, but on the other hand, now that he married the daughter, there was a basis for a political alliance. But it wasn't a loving alliance because David had swiped away the daughter of the king. So he loves his daughter, but on the other hand, this guy took my daughter. So Avshalom, for safety, afraid that David was going to have him executed, fled to Geshur for sanctuary with his grandfather. King was his maternal grandfather, and also the maternal grandfather of Tamar. In time, Yoav, the chief of staff of the military, saw that David was just not the same old David, and persuaded David to call Avshalom back to Israel and the palace. And that's where he brought that woman from Tekoa, the place where there's the olive oil. And anyway, she presented that she had two sons, and they got into a fateful fight, and one killed the other. So, and her husband had died anyway. So her husband is dead, O king, and one of my two sons is dead, my king, killed by the other son, and members of the family now want to avenge the blood and kill the other son, the killer. So I understand why the family members want to avenge the blood by killing that of my sons who murdered the other one, but I'm going to be left with no kids, with no family, with no lineage, the magic word of the class today. I'm asking you to grant him a pardon, a royal pardon, so that everybody has to leave him alone and not kill my only remaining son, with the idea being that this is a metaphor. Okay, so two of your sons, King David, got into a deathly fight, and Avshalom killed Amnon. Do you want to be left without Avshalom also? If by removing yourself from your own story and listening to my tale of woe, well, if your gut tells you, no, the widow's remaining son, he should not be killed, she'll have nothing. So just as your heart and soul tell you, based on my story, that my son should not be killed, you can allow yourself to issue a pardon, so to speak, that your son not be killed by you. So David was persuaded, called Avshalom back from Geshur, promised him safe passage, but David refused to see him for 2 years. At the 2-year mark, which is where we come into the story now, effectively having been under house arrest in the palace, Avshalom starts agitating to be freed. He's on the one hand in a very comfortable palace. He's not in a dungeon. He's in a very comfortable surrounding. And he's being fed royal food every day, not at the royal table. They're bringing it to his room, but it's like room service. Again, if you had 2 years of room service with the best imaginable menu in the most glorious room, still you want to get out. And so he agitated to be freed and to be brought before his father, the king. And how's he going to get to his father? He couldn't send any messages to his father. His father didn't want to hear from him. So he tried to agitate by pressing Yoav, knowing that Yoav is very close. And Yoav avoided him. So let's go back to the text now. Thank you for bearing with me as I read it, but I wanted you to be refreshed with a full summary, see everything, and move forward. We're going to the text now. Okay, so the text shall be found here, I think. Good. Okay.
Rabbi,
Yes.
what of the financial reparations to either Avshalom or Maachah? Nothing was done, so there's still no halachic following of Torah requirements for the
And
rape.
that's why he killed him. And that's why he killed him, rightly or wrongly. Like, Amnon did not pay, and he got away with it. And he didn't face any consequences. He's just walking around, Crown Prince. I raped your sister, and I got away with it. And that's why he killed him.
About David and following the Torah, that he didn't come down on Amnon.
He didn't, that David did not come down on Amnon. Exactly correct. And this is something the Talmud criticizes. In fact, the Talmud discusses why did David's household, why did so many of his kids come out so bad? It's a subject of discussion. And in fact, I point this out to people who either know the Navi, or if they haven't learned it, I tell them the story we're learning. I have parents come to me. As I said, I do rabbinic counseling, pastoral care. And I have parents that are really disappointed the way this child or that child came out. And I tell them the story of King David. And Amnon raped his daughter. Another son, Avshalom, killed Amnon. There's yet another son coming up later, Adoniyahu, and King Solomon is going to kill him. Solomon is like the seventh son. I mentioned there are 6 sons, and then Solomon comes later from Bathsheba, So as David is on his deathbed, about to die, that's redundant, Adoniyahu is concerned that if he does not enter the vacuum right now, the void, and declare himself king over Israel, upon death, David's staff and advisors will designate Solomon, Shlomo, as king. So he tries to cut to the chase and declares himself king over Israel. And Bathsheba, the mother of Shlomo, Solomon, races into David's room. He's on his deathbed and says, your son Adoniyahu has just declared himself king over Israel. And you promised me a long time ago that Solomon, Shlomo, will be king after you. And I've never talked to you about it. It's not a nice subject. But I have to now, because if you don't I hate to talk to you about it, and you're on your deathbed, but if you don't take this by the reins right now, he will be the king, and his first royal act is going to be to have Shlomo and me killed. And a king, from my Thursday night class on Jewish ethics and values at time of war, we learned in Rambam, Hilchot Malachim, king has the right to have people killed, just as David had the right to have Uriah the Hittite killed. Ideally, he has a good reason. But if the king does not have a very good reason, he has that right. And it's not like here in the United States where the minute Trump decides to bomb Fordo nuclear reactor in Iran, half of the Senate wants him, they start talking about impeaching him. All the more left-wing Democrat congressional representatives. Al Green puts forth an impeachment resolution. Ocasio is all over the social media. It's not like that in Torah with times of kings. If the king does, the king does. And anybody gets up there and says, impeach him, is going to be hanged in the next hour. That's how it goes in Torah times. And the king had that authority. So Bathsheba is afraid he's going to kill us. So David says, okay, I hereby announce, everybody in the room can hear me, I hereby announce Shlomo is the next king of Israel. I hereby designate him as the next king. And then he pulls Shlomo aside and he tells Shlomo, these are like his last words. He says, you got to kill Adoniyahu, basically. He says, you got to kill two people. You got to, if you want to have a successful reign, Reign, you're going to have to kill Adoniyahu fast, and you're going to have to kill Yoav. Woo. My military chief of staff throughout my entire royal monarchy, he has got to be killed. And I would have done it for decades, but I couldn't do it. I wasn't strong enough. So I put up with him for decades, and he defied me in many ways because he truly figured out that he's too strong for me to take him on, and I need him to protect me from my foes. But he's older now, and I'm going to be gone, and that's those two. Oh, there's a third guy that's got to go. Shimi ben Gera. When I was at the lowest point in my monarchy, it's coming up in the next few weeks, so I don't want to go into it now. It's going to come up. And as David was forced out of his palace with his entire retinue, all the women he could take, all the concubines he could take, he couldn't get them all out. But whoever he could get out, with whatever soldiers and staff, and they had to flee for their lives out of Israel, and they were fleeing across the Jordan to the other side so that he wouldn't be killed by Avshalom. Avshalom, the one who killed Amnon, the one who now has been under house arrest for 2 years, the one who's trying to get Yoav to get him an audience with his father, will eventually drive David out of the palace and try to kill him. So when someone comes to me, Rabbi, I got problems with my kids. Well, let me tell you about King David. So as David is fleeing for his life, the whole way that he's fleeing with his retinue, a guy named Shimi, it's like from the name Shimon, Simon, Shim'i, like maybe his name was Shim'i, maybe it was a shortened version, Shimon. Shimi ben Gera is like across the street the whole way. He's running at the same pace that David is running, and the whole way he's screaming across the street, cursing him. He's cursing David, you this and you that and you this and you that. Good. Good for you. Good. Because Shimi ben Gera was from the tribe of Benjamin, Binyamin, who was loyal to the house of Saul, King Saul and all the Saul family line. And he never forgave David for usurping. He felt it was usurping the throne of Benjamin by taking the throne on behalf of Judah, Yehuda, and then becoming the king over all of Israel. And we've learned plenty about that. And it wasn't usurping. He did everything properly. We learned all of this. And the guy, the son of King Saul, was assassinated. And David, he was beyond righteous, and he did everything just the right way. But Shimi ben Gera had it in for him. And he did everything he could to the last moment to give it to him when he was as far down as he could be. And so on his deathbed, David said to, number one, I hereby decree and proclaim Shlomo, my son of Bathsheba, is now the king of Israel. Shlomo, come over. I've got a few things to tell you. Adoniyahu wants to be the king. He's going to be in competition. You have to kill him. Number two, he's going to kill your mother and you. Number two, Yoav has been a thorn in my side for decades. You have to kill him, or he will be to you also. And you're going to be like, you're a kid. You're a kid. And he is a very, very life experienced chief of staff military man. So he's got everything going for him to take you down, unless you take him down fast before he knows what hit him. And number three, Shimi ben Gera. Here's what he did to me at my lowest point. And that has that also has to be resolved. You have to resolve it with him too. And so there's that. So he's got trouble with all these kids. So when Janet raises the comment in question about how David failed properly to go after Amnon for raping anybody, much less the daughter of Ma'acha, who, though not halachically is David's daughter, emotionally, psychologically is David's daughter. The Gemara says that David's children came out bad because he was not an engaged father. He was sort of like the cat in the cradle. Never had time for his kids. But it'll be nice talk. It'll be sure nice talking to you, son. It'll be sure nice talking to you. And then one day you grow up, and my son had grown up just like me. And so he was not an engaged father. His perception was, I'm the king of Israel. I have to run this country politically. I have to govern. I have to oversee the army. Until he got very aged, he used to go alongside Yoav into the battlefield. He didn't just give orders and instructions. He was in the front. He'd fight from the front lines until he almost got killed in a battle because he was losing his fortitude. And Yoav told him, you just don't have what you used to. You're gonna have to stay home when we go to war. We'll take care of it. But he felt until then, he's in charge of this, in charge of that. He was also the judge. He was the chief judge of the Supreme Court, basically. People came to the palace with all kinds of issues, asking for his adjudication. And we know that the kings of Israel also were judges, because even if you haven't learned it with me yet, God willing, you will when we get to First Kings. But everybody knows the famous story of the two women who come to King Solomon, Shlomo HaMelech with a dead baby. And then the question is, with the baby, and who does the baby belong to? The baby's alive. I haven't told the story for a while. The baby's alive, and each one says, it's my baby. And you know the famous story. He says, well, let's just cut the baby in half. Each of you gets half the baby, and we'll call it a day. Fair and square. And one woman says, okay, that's fair. And the other woman says, no, don't kill the baby. Let her have the baby. Don't kill the baby. And that's the way Solomon knows that the one who says, let her have the baby is the real mother, because she couldn't avoid the idea of killing the baby. Whereas the one who said, well, that's fair, was not the real mother. But aside from that being the famous story by which people use that anecdote as evocative of how Solomon was the wisest of all men, beyond all that, it tells us that it brings up the idea that the king sat as a judge. So David felt, I've got too many responsibilities. And you know what? I've got wives. I've got a wife for each kid. And what else are they doing all day? I mean, we don't have television. We don't have newspapers. We don't have telephones. We don't have smartphones. I mean, what do they do all day? They cook for their own kid. I mean, what do? They sew clothing for them. They're in charge of each wife is in charge of her kid. And I guess Ma'acha is in charge of two of them, Avshalom and Tamar. And the Gemara says, because he was not an engaged father, his values were not transmitted to his children. He had wonderful values, but he was a bad father. And now, of course, there's another reason it happened. The underlying reason he had so much aggravation with children who grew up rotten, many of them, not all of them, is that the prophet Nathan had told him after the Uriah Hachiti Batsheva incident, the incident where he sent Uriah to the front to get killed, and Batsheva then had the baby, and the first baby died in childbirth, and then the second baby was King Solomon, and Natan had come and said, also, that was another one with an anecdote and a metaphor about the rich man who took the poor man's sheep and killed it for a meal and didn't even cut his own sheep. And David said, well, a guy should be killed for that. And Natan said, well, that's the judgment here. You're the rich man. You have so many wives and so many children and so much everything. And this guy Uriah had one wife and you took her from him. And so therefore, there will never be peace in your household, and your household will be marked by bloodshed. So there are two ways to understand it. The Gemara says, number one, this was a prophecy of God, from God, handed down through the prophet. End of story. But if you want to see how God brought it about, and you want to try to connect dots and see God's ways, even though it's God's miracle, but it happened also because he was an unengaged father. And Janet reminds us that he just dropped the ball completely. He knew it happened, and he decided to remain silent. And there are rabbinic opinions that say that one of the reasons that Avshalom took everything in his own hands, and as I've given away the ending, and Avshalom will rebel against David, drive him out of the palace, try to kill him, or at least force him to flee across the river to another country. One of the primary reasons, because the question arises, what did he do to him to deserve that? I mean, David held him in house arrest for 2 years. For that, you kill him? And after all, he did not kill you, and you killed his son. What's that all about? The Gemara says, when the commentators say, Avshalom never forgave David for not at least intervening. Whether he would have told Amnon, you have to marry her, or whether he would have told Amnon, you have to pay, and whether he would have made it his personal business to match up Tamar so she could find a nice husband, that would be wonderful, because he's the king of Israel. To marry the daughter of the king of Israel like that, she's been raped. I don't think there's a lot of people that would say, I'm just not going to marry her, because I don't think so. And even if there are a lot of people, there's going to be someone of the highest quality that would be very honored to be the king's, to be like near the king that way. So with all of that, it's one of the greatest flaws in David's kingship. Let's learn a little bit of text, and we're back and rolling in business here. Okay. First of all, let's just refresh those last few psukim we at the end of chapter 14. Okay. So Yoav thanked David for sparing Avshalom's life, calling him back from Geshur, permitting him safe passage back to Jerusalem. And Yoav went at once to Geshur and brought Avshalom to Yerushalayim. But the king said, let him go directly to his house. El Beito. So it wasn't, I described it as a room. He's under house arrest, in undoubtedly a very beautifully appointed house, and not present himself to me. So Avshalom went directly to his house. By Yisov, he went to the house without passing in front of the palace, and did not present himself to the king. Ufanei HaMelech lo ra'ah. He did not see the king's face. In other words, he didn't even get to look at the king. No other man in Israel was as admired for his beauty as Avshalom. Avshalom lo haya ish yafeh. B'chol Yisrael, normally the word yafeh, you think of for a woman, yafa, has a komats like that, yafa. Yafa is pretty or beautiful for a woman. Yafeh is for a man. Normally, we don't speak of a man's beauty. We refer to him as handsome. But he is beautiful. He was admired for his beauty. From the sole of his foot to the crown of his head, he was without blemish. When he cut his hair, he was a long-haired guy. I showed you a couple of pictures of these real sex symbols in a previous class. These big hunks with their long blonde hair or whatever, and they're famous models, and so he was like that. He went around with very, very long hair, which is not really, that's not the way people bear themselves, without really even getting into judgment of it per se. But if you think about it, think of a president of the United States. We've had 47, two of them were duplicates. So we've had 45 different men who have been president. Who ever had like just like really, really long, gorgeous mane of hair down to the shoulder? You don't see that. United States senators, congressional representatives, United States Supreme Court justices, even most federal judges, CEOs of major corporations. It's just not a look. Don't think that some of them wouldn't like to do it, but it's just not the right image. And look at all the stuff that is still in how they forced Senator Fetterman of Pennsylvania to dress like a mensch. He was walking into the Senate with flip-flops and a T-shirt and shorts, because that was his style. He's a beachcomber. He's a beach guy, a surfer, I don't know. And initially, the Democrats needed his vote. If you remember in the previous administration, it was 50-50 with Harris having to break the ties, and nobody wanted to start up with him. But eventually, they pressured Schumer. It makes all of us look bad. Once you start having people dressing like schlubs, it no longer carries the same dignity to tell people you're a United States senator. So in the same way, it was very unusual, but he was very focused on his looks. And so when he cut his hair, he had to have it cut every year, for it grew too heavy for him. So he liked it that way, but he cut it once a year. More than once a year, even he couldn't handle it. He'd have to walk like a hunchback. But, I mean, nobody was stopping him from getting a haircut once a month. The hair of his head weighed 200 shekels. Shekel is a measure of weight. That's how it came to be a measure of currency. Because in the old days, you didn't just go to a bank and say, I'd like a roll of 25 quarters or 40 quarters or 100 pennies, if you remember what those used to be. People would have silver, and they would weigh it. They would buy something that'll be 3 shekels of silver, and there'd be a little weight scale that would weigh the shekels. So actually, shekel is a measure of weight, and it became known as a measure of coinage. Avshalom had 3 sons and a daughter, and he named his daughter the same name as his raped sister, Tamar. It does not go to its trouble to tell us the names of his brothers, of his sons, but it makes sure to let us know that his daughter was Tamar. And she was also a very beautiful woman, Yafat Mar'eh. Avshalom lived in Jerusalem 2 years without appearing before the king. Then Avshalom sent for Yoav in order to send him to the king. But Yoav, he wanted to avoid him. I don't need this. I don't want to get involved. I don't want to get in the middle of this. King doesn't want to see him. I pushed the king as hard as I could just to get him safe passage out of Geshur. I don't want to press the king more on his behalf. It's going to lead the king to say, well, who are you loyal to? Are you loyal to me or to my kid? I don't want to get involved with this guy. I already did him my favor. So Avshalom sent for Yoav a second time, but he would not come. And the wording is not just velo ba, to say that, and he would not come, that would be velo ba. Velo ba. But that's, as usual, not an ideal translation. The Hebrew is velo ava lavo. Velo ava lavo. Ava means he didn't want to come. Not merely that he didn't come. Avshalom called for him, and Yoav didn't want to come. So he called him a second time, and again, he didn't want to come. So Avshalom said to his servants, see, even under house arrest, living in a beautiful mansion with all kinds of luxuries that are given to the son of the king, he had servants also. He said, look, my house is next door to Yoav's barley field. This is sort of the high rent district of, I don't know, Washington, D.C. Here's where all the hotsy-totsy people live, or like Malibu or Beverly Hills. But the political equivalent would be in Washington, D.C. if there's a particular district where president, vice president, members of the cabinet live. So Avshalom said, look, Yoav, the military chief of staff, his barley field is next to my house here, or to my barley field. There's barley there, Saorim, Saor. Go and set it on fire. Whoa, whoa. That's a way to get attention. He literally tells the servants to go to the barley field of the military chief of staff, who got him the safe passage back to Yerushalayim. But the guy doesn't want to talk to me. The guy doesn't want to answer my notes. Set it on fire. So they set it on fire. Yoav came immediately to Avshalom's house and said, why did your servant set fire to my field? Because he's in a tough position. He wants to kill him. He can't kill him. He's the son of the king. It's like a real mess. What is he going to do to him? Of course you should do something for that, but you can't. He's got protectia. He's the son of the king. It's real risky to... Avshalom said to Yoav, look, I sent for you to come here. I wanted to send you to the king to say on my behalf, why did you take me back from Geshur? I was happy at Geshur. I was with my Zaidi. I was with my maternal grandfather, the grandson of the king of the country. He was treating me very nicely. And why did you take me away from... I was free. I could go anywhere I wanted. I would be better off if I were still there. So either let me appear before the king, and if I am guilty of something, let him put me to death. So he really doesn't like... He's going batty after 2 years of isolation in his house. So there's your house arrest. Sometimes you wonder, how bad is house arrest? When you hear someone is sentenced to 5 years house arrest. 30 days house arrest is one thing. You get sentenced to 5 years, 10 years of house arrest. You can't walk out even a comfortable house. And you have Instacart, and you have Amazon, and you have TV, and you have all the luxuries, and you have streaming. But you want to get out. I was happier in Geshur. I mean, what, you're going to tell me, yeah, but now you're with your own people? I'm not with my own people. I'm with nobody. I'm in solitary. So I'd rather be there. So take me to the king. Let me see my father's face. If he really has a capital crime with which he wants to charge me, let him kill me. I'd rather be dead than remaining in house arrest. So Yoav went to the king and reported to him. And it was easier to do it that way, whereas you couldn't quite accuse Yoav of taking Avshalom's side against the king, because obviously Yoav says, look, Your Royal Highness, I've got a problem. Your son just set fire to my barley field. And I went to him. I mean, this is getting out of control. I mean, what's going on between you and your son, I'm trying to stay out of it, but he's setting fire to my property. I asked him, what's it going to take? And he said he just wants to get called up in your presence. I'd appreciate if you could do something to protect my barley. Whereupon he summoned Avshalom. So the king, okay, Vayishtachlo alapav, the king Vayikra el Avshalom. King called for Avshalom. Avshalom prostrated before the king, flung himself face down to the ground, and the king kissed Avshalom. Vayishak hamelech la'Avshalom. So we'll just wrap it up with 2 pesukim from the next chapter as the story goes on for next Tuesday. So now Avshalom and David have broken the wall of silence. Vayaslo Avshalom merkavav v'susim. And Avshalom slowly but surely, methodically, under the radar, starts building up a private army. It doesn't look like that. He gathers a couple of fancy horses and a chariot for fun. V'chamishim ish ratzim lefanav, and 50 guys. And he starts like he's the royal prince, because he is. But is that suspicious? He is the next in line. He will eventually be king, and that's how someone manifests a higher ranking on the totem pole of governance. You've got a horse, you've got chariot, not like he's got 30 chariots or 100. He's got one chariot, and he's got some people. He's been called back, last pasuk, and Avshalom used to rise early and stand by the road to the city gates. And whenever someone had a case that was to come before the king for judgment, Avshalom would call out, "Hey, what town are you from?" "I'm from New Jersey." And he would start like, and when the answer came, "Your servant is from such and such a tribe in Israel." He started just being around. We learned in the book of Ruth, as we wrapped up the book, that it was common in the last chapter of the book of Ruth, it was common for people to hang around at the city gates. The Ziknei Aretz, the elders of the city, would hang around at the gates of the city. We know that from Megillat Esther, how Mordechai the Jew, Mordechai HaYehudi, would hang around the gates of the city, except when he wore sackcloth and went fasting. It wasn't allowed for anyone to be wearing sackcloth and publicly fasting at the gates. And that was chapter 4 of Megillat Esther, when that all unfolded. But other than that, people would hang around the gates of the city. And so Avshalom was the prince, next in line to be king, hung around, and he had a horse. He had 50 horses and a chariot. And when people would be on the way to David to bring their cases for judgment to Judge David, he would just be a good old boy and glad hand everybody. Shake hands, great to see you. Where are you from? How's your wife? Like you're going to Iowa for the presidential primaries or caucuses. So you go to Iowa, you start eating corn dogs and whatever else, whatever they eat at Iowa. And then you go to the next place, New Hampshire, and you eat whatever they eat in New Hampshire. And you start going to these little town halls of 20 people, and you start meeting people. And it's the same thing. When a prominent Democrat or Republican, 6 months or a year before the next presidential race, suddenly makes a trip to Iowa, and then makes a trip to New Hampshire, there's all this buzz in the media. We think he's running for, or she's running for president. Suddenly, what's this person from Oregon or Montana suddenly doing in Iowa and New Hampshire? And they start meeting people. They don't wait till the primaries and the caucuses. They start making friends. And they start developing a buzz. He's a nice guy. He's a good old boy. I ate a corn dog with him. He's like one of us. And that's what Avshalom started doing. And because of some other things I said tonight, you may be able already to figure out what's going on, and we're going to find out. Thanks so much for being here. Sorry if we had a little bit of a sharing thing, and we're back in business. See you every Tuesday, God willing. And Baruch Hashem, things in the Middle East look like they're going in a good direction, but we'll see. Bye-bye.